Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here this morning. We are so excited to talk to you. But before we get started, we're going to just do some quick introductions. My name is Tanvi. I am the co-founder and COO of BRACE. I'm also a student at Michigan State University. I'm a junior studying applied engineering sciences. Um, a little bit about my company and what I do. At Brace, we are a material tech startup. So we make performance safety gear using our proprietary composites. I know it sounds very fancy. We specifically focus on athletic gear, and our first product that's currently on the market is the world's first shoelaces that never come untied due to activity.
Nice. Very nice.
Thank you.
Listen, so I don't, that's a hard act to follow, but I, I'm so excited to be here with Tanvi. Hello, everyone. My name is Tiffany Rashan. It may be in the metasphere as Tiffany Kraut. I am the founder of Imagery, where we're shaping that future of education and the future of work. We build strategic ecosystems so that we can level up the way we're learning and developing. And I'm just excited to be here so that we can talk about, we can get into it about onboarding, risk and compliance, because that's something that, as many hats that I wear, ta-da, yeah, I've been fortunate to deal with that throughout my professional tenure, but also personally. So I'm ready to get in.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be super exciting. I know it sounds like a handful, like onboarding risk and compliance. Like, where do we even begin? But Miss Tiffany broke it down very elegantly for us into four different quadrants. And I think we'll just go step by step because, I feel like that's how building a startup is. Just, you don't know what you're doing. Well, I didn't know what I was doing when I started. I don't know about you guys, but you just went step by
Uh, you
step.
can totally speak for me, right?
Yeah.
Crash landing. This is why they tell you to fail fast. It's like, but I keep failing. It's like, oh no. Yeah, I totally, you can speak for me, dear. All right, so we're going to get into the quadrants.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So I know the first quadrant that we kind of talked about was education. I know Tiffany, you're the one who pioneered this system because I've never heard about it before. So I don't know if you want to talk about the quadrant a bit, and then we can kind of like share our experience on that. If that sounds good with you.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
So I developed it again as an educator, as someone who's
Mhm.
deeply invested in learning and development, especially the way that it's changing now, right? Information is it's everywhere. It's been everywhere. It's not going anywhere. I mean, very soon we'll have bot to bot conversations. They'll talk to each other and they'll give us back, that's where we are now. So when we think about how fast information is changing, the stance has to be education has to lead
Yeah.
industry. We can't keep allowing, okay, so we have these new and vibrant industries and education catching up because of the way information is evolving, because of the way information is changing. And the first, like you said, when we think about people, specifically the complexity of people, all the
Mhm.
different skills and talents they may possess, we have
Mhm.
to center education. It has to be first. It has to be first
Mhm.
before we can even think about hiring and what's hireable, what's marketable, what's going to work versus not. Because, there are a whole host of challenges with that. Nowadays, I can say, yeah, I know that skill. I know how to do that. That's great. But do I know how to do it
Mhm.
where it's going to be constructive, right? Do I know
Yeah.
how to start, see it through, finish, whether that's solo on a team? So there are layers when we talk about education. And those are the layers that we need to account for when we're thinking about onboarding, especially mitigating the risk,
Yeah.
using these scenario plans to say, hey,
Mhm.
this person may look good on paper, but these
Yeah.
are the challenges we've had before, and we want to make sure that this person has the adaptability there. So,
Mhm.
looking at onboarding through a broad and expanded lens, there we have to ask better questions. We have to
Yeah.
ask better questions.
No, I love your perspective on it. And I think like another kind of take or perspective on it is like, even within our startups, like we're kind of like the pioneers in that field. So like education is kind of like our competitive edge, you know, like for example, with what we're doing at Brace, it's like a new material category. Like we're not just selling products, but you're teaching people, you know, why it matters. You're teaching, you know, you're onboarding suppliers who may never worked with these composites before, or you educating like athletic departments on why what you're doing is better and how you're reducing injuries. And I feel like everyone at our team, like our foremost like role is been educators more than just like building a product and trying to sell it and go to market. Like we're turning into, you know, like having that first mover advantage. And what a lot of people don't realize is that education component, because people don't honestly care about, you know, what you're selling. It's like, why are you doing it, and that storytelling behind it. And I think education is a big part of it, and education like for yourself too, because I feel like when you are doing a start, like, you know, starting something, you're doing it sometimes alone and you don't know all the answers, and you've probably never done this before, as we talked about. So, you know, to mitigate that risk, just trying to educate yourself in like the best way possible. Like I didn't know how much I knew about materials like a year ago when we first started, but now we do. And I feel like that was just learning and educating. So like we had that knowledge and know how to position ourselves, and to position ourselves in like the forefront of that innovation.
I mean, brilliant. Here's the thing, Tanvi, you are both the future of education and the future of work, right? We all are. But when we're looking at what we're talking about, leadership and changing thought leadership, we have to employ, like you said, education. Everything that you just touched on outside of being a student. Let's say you weren't in school right now, right? Let's say you weren't, you know, in a formal institution or learning. You're learning day to day. All of that applies not just to who you are, your experience, of course, that's part of, you know, being an entrepreneur, having these startups. Let's race to the finish line, right? But it also speaks volumes about your contribution in leadership, and that's where I started. We have to turn this on its head and say, okay, so this young lady has a breadth of experience because she's encountered something new, something different. Material knowledge is huge, especially where we are with climate change, with the environment, with everything that's going on in the world. We need to think about sustainable solutions. Okay, so Tanvi has this experience, right? How can we improve upon that based on her knowledge, based on her wisdom when we talk about materials, right? Then we need to bring Tanvi to the table. This is I'm sorry, I got to go here, Tanvi. This is on the back of the conversations that we have about DEI, right?
Yeah.
Now we can talk about this offline, and somebody's going to want to fight me, but we never needed DEI. We need more human-centric systems that says everybody has something to offer here. Everybody, right? And we're not just looking at what they have to offer just for the sake of a transaction. We need to make some critical connections here. We need to fix some big problems. The only way we're going to do that is having everybody at the table, you know? So centering the education, being mindful of the cultural communication involved, that's key. Because when we have a bunch of people at the table, we have to know how to talk to them. I mean, if we still trying to figure out how to talk to each other, it's 2025, I think we're in trouble. But, you know, some people just don't know. It is what it is. You know, you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And so having the cultural communication guidelines there saying, yo, you can't say this, you can't say that to people. They're of course going to take it a certain kind of way. And then there's going to be a problem. And that problem is going to be in the pockets, right? So this is where we have to, again, center education, center understanding that just seeing somebody on paper and they have these skills and they're, you know, okay with people, but, you know, it'll work, that we can't do that anymore. We have to get real serious about theorizing and applied and active practice when we think about education. We have to.
Yeah, and I like the point you said when you're like, oh, forget you're a student, because I think the common misconception is like for education, you need to be in a formal institution, or you need to like, be in like a structured setting. But I think this now day and age, like I think I've learned more from experiences and actually being out in the field than sitting in a classroom. And I think that is extremely valuable, because you're not just learning the knowledge of something, but as you said, you're learning those cultural connections, you're learning how to talk to people, that these soft skills that our society hasn't placed an emphasis on, you are learning those through these experiences. And I think that's extremely important in like whatever field you are in. And especially, with minimizing risk as well, you need to like have that holistic view of it, and not just like a one-sided, even on an education side as well.
Yeah, for sure. You have to. You need a whole ball of experience. I mean, and because you start juggling those balls after a while, right? It's very important. It's to be honest, when you think about a startup and you think about the entrepreneurial endeavor, it's one of the reasons why I love the thought behind the enhanced digital certificate, because here's where we're talking about just boots on the ground. Okay, I have this idea, I can solve the problem, give me the axe, I'm chopping down the tree. For those of you who read One Thing, you know that metaphor. I'm doing the whole thing, but you realize that in solving this problem, I'm gonna need some resources. I'm gonna need some resources. I'm gonna need some people. I'm gonna need some systems. I'm gonna need all this to come together. And one of the things, like I said, that I loved with the enhanced digital certificate was when I went back into, just saying, okay, so this part of the business is starting to dip off a little bit. I need to go back into contracting, because that's my thing. That's where I shine the best, right? Now I don't have to go through this hoop of proving that my business is a business and that the business is owned and so forth. It's in these categories. I can just simply say, you know what, this is the process. Let's get this done. Let's be efficient. Let's connect with entities that understand the value of education for hiring. It's giving me that opportunity to come face to face with them. Hey, I'm in the system. I'm seeing this company has a need, and you know what? This fits perfectly with what I already do. I have some really cool ideas that I want to entertain with them. So I say that to say, when we think about mitigating the risk, one of the biggest things we can do is start to, like I said, center Tanvi's voice as a small business owner, as someone who has a certain level of expertise. I know these things, I've been here and I've done it. You know what? I'd be perfect. Brace would be perfect to work with you in this endeavor, So, and that's where we can start eliminating some of the red flags that we know are going to come up. Scenario planning is important. It is. It's concurrently important. We have to say, okay, so here's where that's why we need data, right? It's like, okay, so this is what's happening right now, but this is what's going to probably happen. We're being speculative, right? We're evaluating the risk. We have to look for the ways, again, people are changing naturally. You are a student. I mean, I love that you really piggybacked on not having the formal education, because that's key. I think right now with learning, upskilling, where we are with education, people know like, I'm maybe I don't want to go back to school. Maybe I just want to spend, the next 12 months getting a certification and doing the hands-on learning. So there are options. I love that. Apprenticeships, internships, all of these opportunities available for us to practice simultaneously the future of work. But I think, again, when we look at the data and say, okay, wait, we can speculate that in 3 years, we're going to need a job or responsibilities as such to be fulfilled. Well, we're looking at Tanvi now. We're looking at Tanvi and the culture she's leading now to say, we're definitely going to need that in the next couple of years, because, and this is where we're shaping, I believe, startups and the small business sector. I think we're shaping both, again, the future of education and the future of work, because now I'm teaching you, you're going to need me. You're going to need my expertise, right? Because I did the hard things, because I, was out here raising funds and babies and shaking hands, right? I did the work. So this is where I'm saying the mitigation of the risk and projecting. Okay, so we're going to need that we're going to need a Tanvi in 3 years. But even right now, let's start to look at the skills and the experience that she offers. Again, that voice saying she's encountering these things. And I'm proposing this from the perspective of a larger corporation, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're the ones that's making the materials, right? We need to center Tanvi's voice, just as an example. We need to center her voice because she has the expertise. And if these products are coming out now, and she's creating a need. I mean, basic economics. But I think this is, again, where we have a tremendous opportunity to not just look at the way we're educating, but also we're looking at the way that we're saying, hey, it's just time for us to change. It's time for us to change the way we're thinking about startups, small business, and acquiring talent and so forth.
Yeah, and I think like what you talked about in the end kind of like leads into like more of like that empowered leadership, so guiding that adaptive decision making through all this data, and the like that need for that cultural transformation and that transparency in management, as often as possible, to be transparent, to expand capacity, and to just improve like the systems that are already in place, and not to be afraid of saying something like, hey, this isn't working, that we need to pivot. I feel like I worked in big corporations before, and the one thing that I've always heard is like, oh, it's always been done like that. And I feel like just with the new generation, that's something that we need to change our thinking of, like, why, if it isn't working, why is it still being continued to be this way? Like, we have to adapt and have to be transparent in like the reasonings for what we're doing. And I think that's going to really drive, like mitigating risk, but like also the compliance section of it, especially with all the new systems that are going to be in place.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
It kind of froze out. Okay, so I wonder, we may have to talk through that one again. Yeah. But hopefully, let's see, how can we finish it up? I know at the end you were saying, okay.
Yeah, so, I could like repeat the end part. I was just saying like we need transparency, in that kind of decision making, and I think that transparency, needs to start like from that leadership and then like trickle down. I feel like we need to know why we are like doing the things that we are doing and like making those decisions, and whether that's through data or through other external factors. But I think that's really going to hone in on like mitigating risk, because we know we're using the best possible ways with those best systems in place to kind of make those decisions and move that company forward. But it's also with compliance too. We know the reasonings behind it, and so we know like what's right from wrong. At the same time, we aren't just doing something because someone is telling us to do so.
I mean, here's the thing. Anybody who's made a thing or has a thing to offer, we should be thinking about organizational change, just period. If we want the thing to live, if we want the thing to be quote unquote successful. And so, to all of your points, especially when we're thinking about culture transformation and change management, saying, yeah, we have to do things different. We have to account for that right now. We can't, the old response, because it's always been this way. It's like, but it's not working. But, and a lot of it is super obvious, right? Like, it's broken. And you're doing more work. We're not being efficient. And if we're not being efficient, we're not being effective. We're just not. Right? So who best knows that than the small business owner? Who best knows that than the forever student? Right? Yeah. Who best knows that? Those who may not have a voice at the table, right? You have this is on another point that the quadrant actually heads towards, is the value of community and the value of value created community. How we can make this authentic so that everybody's included and everybody offers what they have to offer. and we're learning from each other. This is a simultaneous education. You know, the map in and of itself, it starts to expand because there's so many different variables. But to your point, Tanvi, if we don't get this right, you know, in the next few years, with everything that's happening, every single climate, socially, economically, politically, what are we doing? You know, we the culture transformation requires us to see what we don't see yet. And that's, again, how we're bringing everybody together to see that, right? The challenges are layered. We know the challenges are layered. We know it's going to take us some time to really evolve and start to think about this adaptive mindset, not just from an individual perspective, from a team perspective, from a business perspective, from a university perspective, right? And not, this is the biggest thing, and not exploit people along the way, right? That's a big component of cultural communications. You know, you can't exploit people along the way. English is it's doublespeak. It's paradoxical for sure. Some things we're being ultra literal about. Some things we need to be a little bit more figurative about, right? And I say that to say, just when we're thinking about the way that we're communicating change, we also have to be careful to make sure that we are looking at change in the way that we truly want change, right? We're not exploiting people's opinions. We're not mocking people. We're not, everybody gets to, I mean, this is what makes us human, right? We get to choose. At the same token, we can choose to be more unified. We can choose to herald the voices that actually matter because, again, we're solving the bigger problems here. Workforce development and onboarding, that's just a tiny piece of the puzzle, right? Risk compliance, interlapping and intersectionality of risk compliance. We see the red flags. We see the red flags before we get there, you know? So accounting for the red flags and saying, okay, let's change the way not only we're thinking about solving some of these problems in education, in onboarding, right, and risk compliance, but let's also account for the things that we can't even think this way anymore, right? We can't just keep revisiting and it's going back to, well, we always done it that way. No, we have to clear everything to the table. Let's really do some out-of-box thinking. Let's look at the role of creativity. Because what I think is creative, you know, it's like, well, no, not so really. That's the same thing. It's just remix. And, you know, I'm a musician, so I love remixes, but no broken records here, right? So again, that compliance and that seeing these things for what they are, not exploiting people along the way, truly valuing their voice and saying, hey, yes, you can be transparent here. You know, we're not just getting this information from you just so you can tell us so we can create the thing that we think is going to be trendy. No, we're interested in creating sustainable solutions. We're interested in actually applied practice, right? And sifting through the data so that we can see small places we improve, so we can develop more impact. That's what we have to do, Tanvi. Like, it's not rocket science. It's not.
No, into the last point you said, Tiffany, I feel like as a startup owner, one of the first things that, like, when you are creating a business as an entrepreneur, you learn about is customer discovery, right? You know, like, what do your customers actually want? And I love it because people are like, you initially do it and then you come up with a solution and then you go out. But like, the reality of it is you're continuously doing this customer discovery. You're continuously going to these people, asking them what they want, asking them why the current solution isn't cutting it for them. And I think that is so important in all aspects. But what I want to add to that is also, like, you know, bringing those people are doing maybe customer discovery with the people who usually don't have that voice, as you mentioned. And it isn't something like, for example, at BRACE, it was like, for us as a woman-owned company, what we wanted to highlight is empowering women athletes. And we could have taken that easy way out of being like, well, there isn't a lot of women athletes. So, I mean, like, technically there's just going to be more male athletes that we're going to be interviewing. But I think what we did was like, no, we're going to go sought out after these people, and we're going to show that, like, and we've been transparent with our team throughout this whole process, and we give our team the autonomy to challenge these systems where they see room for improvement, right? So I feel like it's also continuously like, if it is you're building something for the customers, for the people, always going back to them and trying to find a voice for the people who usually don't have the voice at that table. Because at one point that was us, and we didn't have that voice. And then we were fortunate enough to be put into this position to be building something that allows us to be more vocal. So at this point, all we do is give back, but we, you know, we translate that to the rest of the team as well, and being transparent in what we're doing. And if they do see anything, you know, wrong with that system, they have that autonomy to speak up to it and start to change that system as well. So we're continuously growing as well, and we're trying to expand what we know, but at the same time trying to, you know, include more people into these problems and, you know, be part of that change since the beginning, since, like, you know, you're identifying that problem and identifying that solution.
Exercise the critical thinking. I love it. Exercise it, right? That's the only way you get stronger. I mean, as you were talking, what I was just thinking is, Tanvi, wow. Again, I'm glad to hear it. Number one, I'm also glad to herald it because it's important. We're still talking about gender equality. I mean, again, some of this stuff is like, oh my God, when are we gonna fix this?
Yeah.
When are we gonna fix this? Like, it's obviously a problem, you know. But the data showing that, I was just reading an article about female DJs, which I think I told you guys, like, yeah, I think I'm about to DJ. I think it's a wrap. You know, I've gone from musician to producer, and to now I'm like, well, I think, yeah, it's time to DJ. Talking about the role of female DJs and how that number is starting to emerge, and there's some really good female DJs out here, right? I say that to say, in just reading it, I'm like, well, there's always been female DJs. Again, it's the visibility. It's the knowing you're there, right? It's including the voice. So I love that. It speaks to, when we talk about, especially when we're talking about customer segmentation and target marketing and the psychometrics involved in that, it brings me back to full circle with the role of education.
Yeah.
Your one of the things that Imagery does with through the iReady Academy, where we, you know, we determine the true IQ of the actual child, and then we put them on a personal pathway through some gamified instruction to level up their literacy. But I say that to say, as early as 4 years old, what we're teaching is, of course, we can't learn if we're not healthy. We can't do it. It's not possible. But we can start to think about the way in which we look at healthy. And this is for the 4-year-old and the 5-year-old and the 6-year-old who's going to be your target customer in 20 years. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because these are the conversations that, again, when we think about healthy and even mental health, the role of mental health, like, we saw mental health become a big thing post-COVID. Well, we were struggling with mental health before COVID. Again, it just exacerbated, right? Because we weren't talking about it as much. It wasn't as open. So understanding, okay, the mentality of a 4 and 5-year-old now, they're already tech savvy, right? They're being immersed in these VR and AR worlds, right? Yeah. I'm preparing for my client, you know, in 20 years, as I'm simultaneously collecting these voices at the table, learning more about, you know, the role of equity in our company, in our, you know, in our customer segmentation. And so this is why, again, these conversations, they have to just expand just a little bit, right? So that we can account for the nuances. That's how we have strong teams. And that's job security. Shoes, and other wearables, right? For a 4-year-old right now. And simultaneously, as I'm creating these for, you know, for my target audience now, right? My colleagues, my peers, people who get
Yeah.
it, you know.
Yeah,
So
and also
it's hard.
yeah, and I also feel like you can't just think about the 4-year-old. Like it's so easy, like because we're living in the United States now. It's so easy to think about, or like we're living in the Midwest, this one region. But like what we have to also realize is there's a whole, like there's a rest of the world out there, and especially like with globalization and just like how interconnected we are with the internet, it's so important to think about like those other aspects as well and put it into consideration, like compliance in different countries and like cultures in different countries, and like using them as well when you're like doing that initial analysis. I feel like that's extremely important, and that's something that like initially that we missed out on because we were just focusing, oh wait, let's focus here. But even though you are focusing in one place, you still have to keep in mind all of these in the background. And I think like adaptive systems and that adaptive thinking is so important because you realize like decisions aren't linear. It's not like one after other. you know these like adaptive systems and thinking help you build processes so that it allows you to grow, and especially maybe across one segment, across one industry, or across multiple industries as well. Like for example, when you design like a supply chain process, you're also thinking about like compliance in different countries, like partner onboarding, like the environmental side, scalability. Like there's so many aspects to just one decision that you're making, that I think any decision making process, you need to have a system in place that allows you to grow and allows you to be flexible with keeping all of these other things in mind as well.
Hmm. It's key. We have
Yeah.
to listen. There's no place like home. I click my heels. I am Motown made to the core. The thing that I love about home is what I've always gleaned from it is, again, when growing up throughout my schooling, I had really invested people, teachers, and those in the community that challenged me to see beyond 8 Mile,
Yeah.
right? I mean, thinking about my love of reading. It's why I'm a teacher, right? I tell Miss Sebring all the time. I graduated from Mumford. Yeah, I'm a Mustang to the core. I say that to say these people challenged me to see another world. And that, of course, influenced my desire to leave home and see something else, right? There is a whole world out there, Tammy. There's a globe out there. And when we're thinking about talent and we're thinking about the voices that we need at the table, I mean, strategically, not even thinking about the international education strategy that was out before the DOE, before all of the talk about the restructuring became a thing.
Yeah.
But that last report, 2024, I believe it was, it talked about like we have to do a better job of international education, right? This melting pot that we have long since said we are is changing and evolving. So
Yeah.
again, the way we're educating needs to change and evolve. The way in which we think about talent and embodying talent, investing more skills here, investing more knowledge here. We have to think about that. Listen, I think side note, I think your generation really is going to get it together. I really do. I do, because you all get it. It's yeah, let's do this together, right? And let's build across borders. Let's take all of the knowledge that we're bringing to the table and let's build. It's a
No,
beautiful thing to see.
I love that. Especially the education. Like we need more, like I would say international education, especially like we're having people all over the world. Like my parents were from India, and like growing up, I didn't learn anything about like my history or my culture in school, which, was fine at the time. But I feel like as we are working with different people from different regions, different cultures who speak different languages, like I feel like we would need that minimum knowledge and have that cultural significance of learning where they come from and learning those practices to just be part of a better society, to have their voices, to have their thoughts be represented. And I think it would be cool that like if there was maybe a kid who came from a different culture or had just a different identity, that was represented in school and what they were learning, so it didn't feel alienated or they were only learning about one specific part. Like, yes, I am Indian, but also I grew up in America for like my entire life, so I have also that side of me as well, and I was fortunate enough to have that side be taught in school, be represented in history and what I was learning. But I, didn't learn anything about, any of the other side of myself till way later in life. And that was through like me exploring. There was no one like telling me to do anything. I feel like just imagining like if a kid, got to learn both those sides and growing up with that, and also learning that, someone else, maybe from somewhere else, they knew about that as well. So I think it's extremely important to kind of have this like cultural significance, for everyone, especially like I know as we grow older, as the new generation comes, this interconnectivity, I think is just going to be stronger and stronger, like
I do too.
contradictory
Yeah.
to like the what's going on, what's happening in the world right now. I think we're just going to get stronger. And I think it's
Yeah.
extremely important to be transparent about that as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, stronger is an understatement. I mean, unbreakable, seriously, limitless. And I'm here for it. I really, really am. I want to see it. You got to think you're probably in the age range of my older two children in between there. I love to see it because it's time for a change, right? It's time for us to start having these conversations about siloed education. Again, I'm grateful that I had the teachers and the community members that implored me to see beyond. So culture has always been a thing. I'm a Buddhist, for crying out loud. Like when you think about India and you think about Asia, I'm invested because they're important to me as a human being, right? They're important to me as a human being because I value humanity and I understand that there's not one kind of person on the planet, right? So that bias is where we have to address that early on, because to your point, having those experiences, having that knowledge, wait a minute, I need to integrate, like I am Indian, but I'm also all these other things. And that means other people are, right? This is my job as an educator. This is what I am constantly reiterating. Whole child education. We have to, there's no other way to do it at this point. We have to close the gap. The digital divide is getting wider, so we have to close that gap. So we have a lot of closing to do. But to your original point, the stronger, I'm excited about it. This is we get to evolve this. We get to turn it on its head and say, yeah, none of this has really been working. And through our strengths, we're going to stick together and we're going to see this to the end. It's admirable. I'm excited about it. I really, really am.
And Miss Tiffany, I could talk to you forever and ever, but I know we're kind of approaching the end. So like, if there's one key thing that you want someone who's watching this to take away from this conversation, or one thing that you want to share, what do you think that would be?
Think about your data. Think about your data. At the end of the day, is it truly and comprehensively represented? Think about your data, which requires us to think about what we're thinking, right? It requires us to ask bigger and better questions. As I say all the time in music, it's not dress rehearsal, it's showtime. We have quite a bit of practice under our belt. We have opportunities like the enhanced digital certificate to say, hey, I'm doing this thing and I'm really, really good. You can work with me and change some things, right? Or you can keep doing what you're doing, which is not really working, but giving the choice. So again, think about the data, think about the ways in which we're thinking and what that leadership truly looks like. And let's keep being there for each other. Like we are humans at the end of the day, real talk. So.
And I'll just like to add, like, be transparent. I feel like transparency and communication, just as we move forward, are going to be extremely important. And like, especially in higher leadership, like if there is, if you're doing something a certain way, why? Is it data that's supporting it or like something else? And just being transparent with your team. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones who are also putting in that work, who are, coming together as a group to make an organization or a company, you know, strive and move forward and achieve all its goals. So I think like just being transparent and also not being afraid to change things, not being afraid to being told that like, hey, this isn't working, like not taking that personally, but just being like, okay, it's not working, like having that greater good in the, you know, in the back of your head. Okay, it's not working, let's find out what works and just move with it. And I don't think you should be taking that personal at the end of the day, because like as you said, every like education is so important, so we're continuously learning something, you know, as we move forward.
We are. And we're moving forward, we will.
Yes.
So thank you for this incredible opportunity to speak with you and just spend some time with you, Tanvi. I can't wait to get my first pair of braces. I'm gonna have
Yeah.
to, I gotta work on some collagen, but
It was so
we're
great
gonna
talking.
get there. We're gonna get there. This was wonderful.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the questions that we're gonna get. I know we're gonna get some questions. I'm
Yeah.
hopeful that we'll get some questions. Let's talk about it, you know. Looking forward to the questions. So
Mhm.
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.